Man, who would have thought Mr. Woodcock would be casting such a comparatively strong shadow over my thoughts vis-a-vis the 2017 awards season, huh? Huh. You know, actually, I just realized that joke is actually not going to be funny for like another couple weeks or so. Let's do another take. From the year that brought you The Problem with Apu and... here's another thing to make you feel like a real piece of shit about things you thought were funny in the early 90s. It's almost uncomfortable the degree to which I, Tonya has been sort of selling a different movie than the one it actually is. Going strictly by the trailers, you'd be forgiven for assuming that this was a dark comedy take on the infamous scandal, which, yes, was a real thing that actually happened for those of you under the age of, wow, 24. Jeez. You know, basically a kind of fact-based winter sports mashup of Talladega Nights and Drop Dead Gorgeous, but the actual film, while suitably in tune with the tragicomic absurdity of certain aspects of the story, is more sad and quietly angry. A story about ill-conceived crime that spiraled out of control, yes, but also a story about class, injustice, sexism, and abuse that doesn't so much aim to rehabilitate Tonya Harding as reframe her story as a succession of indignities at the hands of her abusers that turns its gaze back on the culture that made her a punchline in order to say, yeah, you too, buddy. Well, it does indeed involve around the infamous international media scandal that exploded when a violent attack on Harding's supposed 1994 Olympics rival Nancy Kerrigan turned out to be a paid hit orchestrated by a, for lack of a better word, blithering delusional idiot hired by Harding's abusive ex-husband. It places the story in the broader context of her life leading up to that point. A child skating prodigy pushed to success by her hard-minded, emotionally and physically abusive mother, she was at one point considered by many to be the most physically gifted women's figure skater in the world, but as contended by the film, she was also held back and marginalized by the establishment of her sport owing to bias against her working-class upbringing and decidedly blue-collar American sensibilities. Positioned as a white trash redneck punchline by the sports media and bracing against skating's aesthetic preference for waifish princess types, the film, while not letting Harding entirely off the hook in regards to what she knew and when she knew it, posits that this already dismissive view of her is what made it easy for the media and the viewing public to view her as somehow more responsible for the hit than the abusive ex-husband who executed it as a haphazard controlling power play, ultimately presenting her as a tragic figure struggling against bias and her own background to prove herself on the merit and getting literally and figuratively beaten down twice as hard for daring to appear angry about it. And the late-night jokesters, smug sports reporters, and everyone who laughed along with them as one more collection of abusers lining up to take it out on her. It's a tough performance of a tough character, and while being able to walk away from the wreckage of Suicide Squad should have been all the proof we needed that Margot Robbie is a serious talent to be reckoned with, I, Tonya absolutely seals the deal. It's a star vehicle of the highest order, allowing her to fully flex her physical and emotional range, turning what might otherwise have been another remember the 90s biopic of the type that are gearing up to be a wave after last year's 2 O.J. Simpson's projects. Robbie's Harding is a ferocious, funny, compelling, and deeply sympathetic figure, whatever you think the truth of the actual story is. And the only time she's not the most commanding presence on screen is when she's acting opposite Allison Janney as Tonya's hellishly wicked mother, the character who the film contends may be more responsible than anyone for the domino effect of abuse, petty violence, and misery that topples over the course of the story. Every time you think you can't hate her more, she finds another level, and it feels very likely that Janney might have bad-mommed her way into a Best Supporting Actress Oscar. But it's still Robbie's show through and through, and while it can't quite beat Colossal in terms of robust coming out from under a life of abuse narratives gifted to us by 2017's eerily prescient release schedule, and is hampered somewhat by uneven direction and occasionally less than convincing double work in the editing for the skate scenes, I, Tonya is a riveting look back at a story you only thought you knew, buoyed by one of the year's best lead performances. 3 stars to the movie, but highest honors to the actress. Give this one a shot.